In this video, we'll take a look at adding a shelf to our table and assigning a visibility parameter to it. And then we're going to load it into a project and take a look at the different types of tables that we can create from the parameters that we've made here. So to do this, I'm going to go back into my floor plan here. So if I'm going to build a shelf, it's going to need to go around the legs here. And still be associated to these parameters. So it's really important when you're modeling and creating families that you are associating elements to or building elements locked to reference planes as opposed to other objects. So it's really easy when you start to model a new form to accidentally, like if I was using my pick lines here, it would be really easy to come in here and pick this. But if I'm doing that, I'm locking it to the extrusion of the tabletop leg. And that's not what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm always locking it to the reference planes themselves. So to assist in that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just hide this, just a temporary hide down here with my sunglasses. So I'm just going to hide the element. So you can see that temporary hide showing me that something's hidden in my view. But that's just going to make it really easy for me to make sure that I am not accidentally associating an element to another element, and I'm just locking to reference planes. So I'm just going to make this tabletop a little bit less wide here. So the parameters, there we go. So it's clean and I can see what I'm doing here and we don't have this text overlapping. So I'm going to go back to my create tab, start a new extrusion for my shelf. I'm going to use my pick lines. And I need to make sure to go around those tabletop legs, right? And then to the outside edge. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. It's going to look a little bit messy, but we'll get it all cleaned up and then. So I need to make sure that I'm going to these reference planes here. It's for the front going around the tabletop leg and then the back one here for the back of the shelf. So I'm going to lock all of those. Then I'm going to come in here and use my split tool to split these inner lines, because those lines are going to be needed up here for this tabletop going around that corner and down here going around this corner. So, okay, so I split each one of those, and then I'm going to use my trim command to start to clean this up. All right, so you can start to see the outline here. All right, as we're going around here, each element. All right, go ahead and finish that. And there's my shelf. I'll go ahead and take off the temporary hide. My legs are back. Now you can see the shelf going around each one of the legs here, just like we would like. Now we got to think about that height dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and create another reference plane here. And just one more, whoops, for that thickness. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust my shelf height. Got to lock it to that reference plane, and then this reference plane. And then I'm going to control that with a parameter. So so far we've been using parameters for everything. You can also just use certain dimension controls. So if I'm in here, I can actually, instead of doing a parameter, I could just say equals. And that means that this, whenever that tabletop height, if that goes up, the shelf's always going to be equal between the ground and the tabletop height. And also, instead of creating a thickness here, if I know I want it to always be 2 inches, you can also create a parameter and assign it to that. That's fine, just so you know there's another option. I can also just lock it. And that means that's always going to be 2 inches. All right, so those are 2 other controls that you can do in here. You know, when you're building your elements. So let's take a look at what that does if that height changes. And I say okay. So you'll see that shelf is always equal in between the 2. All right, let's take a look at it in our 3D of the family, not the project yet. There we go. And then I'm going to apply a visibility parameter to this. And what that means is it's going to be over here on your graphics, is that I have the option to turn it on and off. So if I have this, you know, it's built into the project, it becomes a yes, no option once it's in the project. So let's take a look at saving this and loading this into a project now. and we can test out all of our parameters. So I'm gonna go ahead and load into project and close that family. Let's do 3 different items here. Delete this. So if I take a look at it in 3D here, I can go into my types and I can apply parameters. And of course you can pick more appropriate finishes, but just as an example here. All right, and these are all the same type, so it changed all of them right now. Oh, you can also go and you can also assign a parameter for that shelf. Let's go ahead and do that. Select it, and let's hit edit family. Go back in here and throw a material. All right, I'll load it back in. I'll go ahead and save the changes again. And then I'm going to overwrite the existing version and its parameter values because I just changed parameter values. So you could set that so it's different than the other items, or if you wanted those to always be the same, you could have applied the same parameter. You have some flexibility there, but now I can make a new type. So since we made these type parameters, whenever I make a new type, I have the ability to apply different different values, if you would, even though there's different materials, but different items to those, and then I can change any of these parameters as well. Go with those. That looks like some significant changes. All right, so I have a different table. I can also then, because of that visibility parameter that we put on the shelf, so this will be another type here. So we can just assign some different ones. I'm just assigning them randomly here, just so we're not taking the time on the materials, but we're learning about the table here. Then we can also, here's our visibility. So we could have called that shelf visibility to identify it a little bit better, but that's okay. It's our visibility parameter. So if I turn that off, it's going to turn off the shelf visibility here. So it's still in the family. You can see it here in the other types, just in this one here, that it's no longer there. All right, so then if I want to put these on a sheet, and I'm just going to use that default one, you would use the typical one. But if I want to put those on a sheet here, right now, all 3 of these are showing in the same one, but if you want each one to have its own view, and view title, I can just duplicate the view and duplicate it 3 times here. All right, and then let's window tile, hit the A for zoom all. Okay, I'm going to hide these levels in each one. So just selecting, right clicking, hide in view. You could also turn them off in visibility graphics. Either one will work. Here we go. All right, so now if I want each one to be in its own view, I would just come in here and hide the other items for each view. So then this would be the 3rd one there. Okay, so I'm just hiding them from the view. That way, when I pull them onto the sheet like this, oh, that is real small. Okay, let's bump up that scale. All right, then when I pull these on, let's see, we'll do the same. What scale was that we worked on? All right, so that way when you bringing it onto the sheet here, each one has its own view title. As opposed to if I were to bring this 3D view on, you would see something like this. Well, the level still, but see, we'd see all three together with just one view title, as opposed to this way where you're just showing one per item. That way you could clearly identify, well, type 1. And then you could identify each one here. Whoops, if I could type. All right, so you can identify each one on their own.